Ad lo yada, a mitzvah which is advocated on Purim, whereby we are meant to become or find ourselves in a state of inebriation, drunkenness. We no longer know the difference between the blessings of Mordechai and the curses of Haman. Really? Is this a mitzvah that Chazal, that the rabbis in the faith of Judaism would expect from us? Judaism, a religion that is so controlled, that is so disciplined, that requires us to be so careful and calculated with regards to everything that we do, every measurement that we take, everything we eat, everything we drink, and how we approach it. And all of a sudden, on this one day, we reach a state where everything goes. It's not an easy thing to be able to understand, to the extent that the Gemara, the Talmud, tells us that Rabbah, a Tana himself, a tremendous scholar, was enjoying and partaking from a Seudah of Purim with his long-loved friend, Rabbi Zera. V'kam Rabbah v'shachtei leRab Zera. Rabbah got to the state where he killed his friend, Rabbi Zera. Now, it is true, Rabbah appealed and asked for forgiveness and asked that Rabbi Zera come back to life, and it seems that according to the Gemara, he did. But the very fact that Rabbah reached this state and slew his friend and trusted dear one, Rabbi Zera, obviously demonstrates that this is not what's supposed to happen. Tremendous state of irresponsibility, a tremendous state of neglect that Judaism would never purport, let alone support. And therefore, many of the Achronim, many of the advocates of the Shulchan Aruch demonstrate or certainly propose that this halacha should be removed from the codex of the halacha. For example, the Aruch HaShulchan speaks about the fact that the Rambam himself, Maimonides, does not say that we're supposed to get in a state of drunkenness, but that we're supposed to drink a little bit and find ourselves falling asleep. And that is what should happen. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, if that's the case, why does the Gemara, the Talmud say, Ad lo yada ben Arur Haman the Baruch Mordechai, where we're supposed to get to a state where we no longer know the difference between these two characters and their virtues or not? But rather, what it should have said, says the Aruch HaShulchan, according to the Rambam Maimonides, Ad sheyiradem, we get to a state whereby we just fall asleep. The very fact that the Talmud does not use this vernacular, says the Aruch HaShulchan, demonstrates that what the Rambam Maimonides is telling us is that this halacha, this mitzvah implemented by Chazal, should no longer be embraced, should no longer be utilized, and should no longer see fruition. In other words, one is not supposed to get to a state where they no longer know. One of the unfortunate consequences that we learned from the demise of our dear daughter Gila is that we have to try and infuse the fact that people, Jews, should never be in a state where they do not know. We, the Jewish people, are supposed to be in the know. We're supposed to be aware. And if we could not save our daughter Gila, and if we had to witness and be a part and live for the rest of our lives with the tragic consequence of Gila's death, then at the very least, we have to be able to sanctify her memory by allowing, allotting, and promoting people to know, people to understand about mental illness, people to understand Gila's story, so that these tragic consequences, chas v'shalom, should never be repeated. And no one should have to experience the difficulties and the catastrophic consequences that we have. And therefore, I share with you the following thought. Gila herself, during her life, interestingly enough, was someone who really wanted everyone to know. She was vivacious, rambunctious, lively, open. She spoke to people, and she spoke her mind. She wanted people to know what she was thinking. And she had a tremendous way of doing so. She said things straight from the heart, and she said them straight so that you knew exactly where you stood and what she wanted you to know. But there was one particular event in Gila's short life that not only did she not want anyone to know, but she herself did not know what to do with that unfortunate circumstance. And I tell you this with the permission of my wife, so let it be clear. Unfortunately, many times mental illness is the result of a trigger. It's not always, but sometimes there's a triggered event that takes place that can bring out depression, anxiety, and certain other mental illnesses. 3 years ago, Gila attended a Purim party where many youngsters certainly were interested in reaching the state of ad lo yada, where they would not know, drinking, partying, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, one young man who was at this party was involved in this ad lo yada, and he reached a state where he found himself with Gila, and Gila was physically compromised. Gila was physically assaulted. Now please, do not approach me and ask me what happened. There are people who are foolish enough to do that, and that's why I say it. But what it is important for us to know is that if our children reach a state of lo yada, a state where, God forbid, they are physically compromising people's physical existence or causing people to trigger their mental illness, or reaching a point where they are no longer in control of themselves and thereby no longer in control of what consequence they could bring on someone else, being they dire, then that is something that we as parents, we as a community, we as congregations, we as a people have to know. We have to be aware of it, and we have to ensure that our children, that our families, that our friends, that our colleagues never reach a point of kam rabba v'shachte lerabzera. They should never reach a point where, God forbid, someone is physically or mentally harmed. That is something that indeed we have to be extremely careful about. And if we get to a point where we no longer know and where we can cause damage to others, then let us understand, as Maimonides did, there is no room for that in Jewish law. That state, that halacha, if you may, has to be removed by us. And therefore, it is extremely prevalent for us, at the very least, to learn this lesson from Gila's unfortunate tragedy. Now, I am not proposing by any stretch of the imagination, I am not a party pooper, and I'm not telling everyone that they should never party and never enjoy and never relax and never have a good time. I'm someone who likes to joke around. I'm someone who likes to have a good time. I'm not sure exactly when that next time will be, considering what happened to us and to our sweet and loved Gila. But I'm not silly enough to suggest that people should not enjoy themselves. But I am in the know now, unfortunately, from what happened to us, that people have to enjoy themselves responsibly. We have to be careful about what we do. We have to be careful about what we say. We have to be cautious in terms of the atmosphere, the situations surrounding ourselves, so that, God forbid, we should never be involved in damaging someone's future. And therefore, it is extremely important for us to know this. Not only we as the Jewish people are expected lada'at, to know, but we are expected also lehodia. Let it be known how we should behave, how responsible we have to be, both to ourselves and to halacha. And even halacha at times has to be purported, adjusted accordingly when it comes, God forbid, to human life. And I think it is for this reason that at the end of the Megillah, in the famous song of Shoshanat Yaakov, the one statement that we make boldly is as follows: Lehodia, to make known, Shekol kovecha lo yevoshu v'lo yikalmu lanetzach kol achosim bach. To make known that all who hope in you, Hashem, will not be shamed, nor ever be humiliated, Those taking refuge in you, Hashem, will find that refuge. Unfortunately, Gila was not able to find that refuge in her life. Let us all, at the very least, find refuge as a result of her death. And if we are able to boldly declare and understand what it means, lehodia, to make known that no one should ever be ashamed, that no one should ever be embarrassed, and that we should always be able to turn to Hashem, our Creator, and to our fellow man, then indeed we will understand what Purim should really be about. Our responsibility, our love, our embracement of what life should be. Purim Sameach.